Ladies and gentlemen, some of you might be aware of the fact that they had a Democratic debate last night, and I wasn't too keen on talking about this. But, if you remember the first debate, Marianne Williamson did try to talk about reparations, and Kamala Harris cut her off. This time around, she raised an answer, and it was actually a pretty good answer. And the rest of them, of course, were like Beto O'Rourke. He was for the study of slavery. And we don't need no more damn studies. I mean, to me, the study is nothing more than a stall tactic. That's all. We are going to look like we're doing something, but we're really not doing anything at all. And also, what we're doing, it doesn't require any financial restitution to African Americans. That's all HR 40 is. That's why they can get behind it, because they don't have to give anything. See, that's why they're all for it. But when you start talking money, all of the ones that are for HR 40, they start backing away because they're being a bunch of liars, y'all. I mean, let's be real. They're all being a bunch of liars. They are not for us lifting ourselves up and not being last anymore. They do not want the wealth gap to go away. They like everything the way it is. They like you being last. They like you sitting here with nothing. They like you with no resources. That's the way they like it. And see, if they do the study for reparations and slavery, they don't have to do nothing beyond that. And they're just hoping that they'll be able to do this without us putting up much of a fuss, and then we can all move on. That's really what their plan is. But see, that's not enough. As long as there's no restitution, this subject matter is not going to die. Plain and simple. So that's all HR 40 is to me. It's a stall tactic. They're hoping during this election year, it'll be enough to quiet us down. And it's just simply not working. We have been very clear about what we want. We want a black agenda. We don't want to hear nothing about no minorities or people of color and women and LGBTQ. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. We want an agenda just for us. Nobody in this country, no other groups have the same kind of lineage and history that ADOS has. That being said, we don't want to hear anything else about other groups. This is our time to shine. And if you are not with us, then that means you are against us. So if you are backing HR 40, but you're not backing financial restitution, then you are making it clear you are against ADOS. That's what you're doing. You're actually giving us an answer. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you listen to Marianne Williamson's answer. So first of all, this came out in Slate, July 31st, 2019. Marianne Williamson gave the clearest and best answer on why the U.S. should pay reparations. So yes, the question did come up this time around, and I think it had to come up because a lot of people complained about how they avoided this subject matter in the first debate. So this time around, I think they realized people did complain about that, how this is such a hot topic in the country. How could you avoid talking about reparations? So this time around, the question was thrown in there by CNN. So I'm going to let you listen to this exchange between Marianne Williamson and Don Lemon.
Ms. Williamson, many of your opponents support a commission to study the issue of reparations for slavery. But you are calling for up to $500 billion in financial assistance. What makes you qualified to determine how much is owed in reparations?
Well, first of all, it's not $500 billion in financial assistance. It's $500 billion, $200 to $500 billion, payment of a debt that is owed. That is what reparations is. We need some deep truth-telling when it comes. We don't need another commission to look at evidence. I appreciate what Congressman O'Rourke has said. It is time for us to simply realize that this country will not heal. All that a country is a collection of people. People heal when there's some deep truth-telling. We need to recognize that when it comes to the economic gap between blacks and whites in America, it does come from a great injustice that has never been dealt with. That great injustice has had to do with the fact that there was 250 years of slavery, followed by another 100 years of domestic terrorism. What makes me qualified to say $200 to $500 billion? I'll tell you what makes me qualified. If you did the math of the 40 acres and a mule, given that there was 4 to 5 million slaves at the end of the Civil War, there were 4 to 5, and they were all promised 40 acres and a mule for every family of 4. If you did the math today, it would be trillions of dollars, and I believe that anything less than $100 billion is an insult, and I believe that $200 to $500 billion is politically feasible today because so many Americans realize there is an injustice that continues to form a toxicity underneath the surface, an emotional turbulence that only reparations will do.
Okay, so you heard her answer. She actually did really well with that answer. You know, we don't need any more studies. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the fact that they are even bringing up a study to us after all of these centuries is a complete insult. And they know exactly what they're doing. The Democratic Party have determined that they're not going to do anything at all. But they're going to shuffle some papers around and make it look like they're doing something for us with H.R. 40. And like I said, they're hoping to silence us with that until the time of the election. And then we just go back to the way things were before. Because that's the old bag of tricks that will no longer work on us anymore. Number 2, where's your 40 acres and a mule? They gave that 40 acres and a mule to the European immigrants that came over here. They got your 40 acres and a mule. That's where it is. That's why they don't have it to offer you today, because they gave it away. So I'm glad the question came up. You know, so Don Lemon, let me just go down here now that you heard her answer, began a segment on race relations in America by asking former Texas Rep. Beto O'Rourke, whose family had slaves, how he would heal racial divide and take on President Trump. O'Rourke said we must confront the hate crimes that result from racist rhetoric. Former Colorado John Hickenlooper talked about the police reform and universal pre-K. Massachusetts Elizabeth Warren, who said, a check for what? Pitch increasing funding for historically black colleges and universities. South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg addressed the fatal shooting of a black man by a white police officer in his town, describing how he tried to help residents come together after the tragedy. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar press for improving economic conditions for everyone, but she's not for a check. She made that very clear. I did the video on Amy Klobuchar. She absolutely don't want Black people having a check, but she has a program for you. And we don't want no program. Without financial restitution, it's really not reparations at all. Okay, then O'Rourke brought up the heart of the matter, the legacy of slavery in America. The former congressman pledged to sign into law Sheila Jackson Lee legislation to set up a commission to consider reparations proposals. And see, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not down for them signing that into law, only because it does not do anything as far as restitution for slavery. We don't need a study commission. Slavery has been around longer than the Holocaust. It's been around longer than the Japanese internment camp. It's been around longer than the reparations they gave to the Italians. And it's been around as actually longer than many of the other reparations this country has given out. That being said, we have literally waited longer than any other group that received reparations already. We've been waiting the longest. Now, with the Native American Indians, a lot of their slaughters did happen during the time of slavery. That being said, but they've been compensated. So we have literally been waiting the longest out of everybody. So the fact that they don't want to give you financial restitution in itself is racist. So let me get back to Beto O'Rourke that wants to sign H.R. 40 into law and set up a commission to consider reparation proposals. And then when those proposals are in, you just knock them all down and have an excuse on why you won't compensate African Americans. That's what the position they want to be in. Pass the law, everybody give their proposals, and then they look for all kinds of reasons not to pay it. That's all H.R. 40 does. But it was Williamson who brought up her own quite specific proposal to commit up to $500 billion to help atone for slavery. Williamson, who has a spotty record with scientific facts and once again used some of her speaking time to criticize her opponent's wonkiness and focus on policy proposals, did manage to deliver a stirring case for spending a vast sum of money to deal with the harms caused by generations of structural racism, while particulars of her proposals to forego a commission to look at evidence are still up for debate. Her argument, no, it's not up for debate. Y'all know what the whole history is on slavery. That is not up for debate. You know, where was the commission for giving reparations for the Jews? Let's see that commission. Let's see their version of H.R. 40. See, you want to do things differently when it's us. You know, and that's what's got to stop. All right, so her argument for moral and historical justifications for paying reparation was lucid and powerful. So So this was Don Lemon. Many of your opponents support a commission to study the issue of reparations for slavery, but you are calling for up to $500 billion in financial assistance. What makes you qualified to determine how much is owed in reparations? Williamson, you heard her answer. She said, well, first of all, it's not $500 billion in financial assistance. It's $2 to $5 billion payment of a debt that is owed. That is what reparations is. That's right. Without any type of financial restitution, it's not reparations, y'all. And it should never be accepted as reparations. We need some deep truth telling when it comes. We don't need another commission to look at evidence. I appreciate what Congressman O'Rourke has said. It's time for us to simply recognize that this country will not heal. All that a country is a collection of people. People heal when there is some truth, deep truth telling. We need to realize that when it comes to the economic gap between blacks and whites in America, it does come from a great injustice that has never been dealt with. The great injustice has to do with the fact that there were 250 years of slavery, followed by another 100 years of domestic terrorism. What makes me qualified to say 200 to 500 billion? I'll tell you what makes me qualified. If you did the math of the 40 acres and a mule, given that there were 4 to 5 million slaves at the end of the Civil War, they were all promised 40 acres and a mule for a family of 4. If you did the math today, it would be trillions of dollars. And she's right. And on my side of the family, both my father and mother side, they had a lot of children. So they definitely would have been eligible had they done the 40 acres and a mule. My family would have been eligible, and I'm sure many of yours would have too. You know, back in those times, children, sometimes they had to work in order for the family to be able to make it. So it was not because my grandfather had to work as a child. He didn't finish school. He had to work. And both sides of the family were out in those fields. And they had children that exceeded 4 during those times. In fact, I have my great-grandfather in the list of all the children he had, and my great-great-great-grandfather in the list of children he had. These things aren't hard to find out, y'all. So my family, had America did the right thing, would have been eligible for the 40 acres and a mule on both sides of my family, mother and father. So if you did the math, it would be trillions of dollars. Yeah, today it would be. And I believe that anything less than 100 billion is an insult. And I believe that 200 to 500 billion is politically feasible today because so many Americans realize there is an injustice that continues to form a toxicity underneath the surface. So that's how she answered the question. All right, so FYI, Williamson has been a leader in the Democratic field on reparations in terms of outlining a policy for a while now. So, which is very true. You know, she is the only one that gave a clear answer, y'all. So I have to give it to her. Yeah, her figures may be a little low. I mean, really low. It should be really in the billions, but she is not afraid to step up to the plate and talk about financial compensation. So she actually did better. She says a lot of different things, but she's not a politician. Neither is Trump. Trump is the president, and he still sounds like he's not a politician. Okay, so he sounds the same way. So, many of them, many of the people in this country are still opposed to it, but we don't care what you're opposed to. Reparations is not going away. The subject matter is not going away. So while you're running around saying, go back from where you came from, and my answer to you is, I'll go back from where I came from when you pay my reparations. Nobody is going to leave for free. And why should we leave anyway? Many of us have been here longer than Trump. Trump is a first generation American. Many of us we predate Trump. And if he's not leaving, what makes you think we're going to leave? But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.